Welcome back to RallySlide and to the final part from Rally Nuraghi, Day 2.
Saturday, the second day of Rally Nuraghi Vermentino, and the final one as well. After we went on the stages of the day before to see Oskir and Terranova as much as we could with the recce problems we had in Terranova, we went to the service park and the Park Fermé to pick up the car for another 15-minute service, where the mechanics will try to work out the brake problem from yesterday and do some final fixes. So, we went to the first stage, Oskiri, which actually over the rally would be my favorite. The shortest stage of the rally and the least tricky one. As much as you can say least tricky in Sardinia. But it was. I actually enjoyed driving it, the rhythm was good, and as it was less difficult, let's say, from the other stages, I enjoyed it a lot more. It was a lot more flowing, so I drove it a bit quicker, and took some risks in some places. The only really tricky thing about it was its grip, which was changing a lot from place to place. But I reached the finish line. I was a bit disappointed with the time, which was around 40 seconds slower than the leaders, as I thought I could do better, but for a first timer, it was not too bad. I simply felt that there were some places where I might have been a bit too careful, but just as I thought that there couldn't be any more retirements after the day 1 drama, there were some news. Luca Ruggiero, the man who I went to his sim center a few days earlier, who was actually competing in the rally as well and was performing well, retired with an accident in the same Oskiri stage, and I was promoted a place up. I actually stayed in the same place because someone overtook me, Marco Zanin, one of the leading drivers. Then we went to the next stage, Terranova, which was the longest stage of the entire rally. I started the stage a bit worried, as this is where I had the puncture in the road car, so I took it a bit more steadily, again, and I drove it as good as I felt, with going a bit slower in some places, especially very rocky and very tricky parts near the end of it, and as there was a big downhill section, the brakes faded again, not for mechanical reasons, but for reasons that simply they were overloaded and they had to cool down, which was a problem especially on the downhill section. I wasn't sure if the car will stop, which led to some problems and going a bit slower. But I managed to finish the first loop and went back to the service part, telling the mechanics again about the problem with the brakes, which again they managed to fix, thankfully. Now, going to the afternoon one, and a bit of a note, I actually received 2 new tires from Paolo for the car for the rally, although I didn't pay for them, which I did the first day, and later I did also the first 2 stages on the second day. However, the conditions were both hot and rough, which meant that already after the first loop of Saturday, I had to change them to some used tires, which were in relatively good condition, because the new tires were finished. I actually was told by Fabio that I should bring 6 new tires to the rally like this. Now going to the second one through Oskiri on the afternoon, and I felt more confident. I actually decided within myself that I will push a bit more on Oskiri, as I felt good in this stage, and saw that I could drive it much better than the other ones. And I was performing well. Already in its first part after the rally, I learned I was 5 seconds quicker in my second one than on my first one, and I felt really good with it. And then, another disaster. Not for me though. One of the leading drivers in my category, Davide Bartolini, was competing for the leading places, third or second, and had an enormous accident, which actually brought out the red flag. So, I was disappointed as it was brought out, because I was driving well and knowing that I'm driving very quickly. The stage was stopped, we reached the accident scene, and we were all given nominal times for the stage. The stage was actually for us cancelled, and we had to go back. Annoyingly, although the accident was only a few hundred meters away from the finishing line, we were told by the organizers that you have to do the stage back to the next one, which was the last stage, Terranova, so we had to drive nearly 7 kilometers of a stage in road speed to go back and to the road section, which brought us a lot of time, but the organizers could have made a better choice. Now, I was actually in 5th place, not really under threat from anyone and not threatening anyone ahead of me, which was also what I hoped for before the rally, as challenging for the leading places would have been a difficulty with my lack of experience both with the car and the conditions. On the road section, I had a bit of a thought. Ahead of the next stage in Terranova on the road section, we stopped at a rail crossing, which meant I had to stop, and I told Fabio a thought which I had. No WRC driver ever completed a career in Sardinia without crashing or damaging his car, which leads to retirement. And then he actually told me that he had in 2009 as a spectator a meeting with Sebastian Ogier's co-driver Julian Ingracia as they retired from the rally for the day, and talked to him. No WRC champion ever managed to complete his career in Sardinia without crashing or breaking the car. Loeb crashed, Ogier crashed, Ronholm, Solberg, Neuville, Tanak, Rovan Pera, and there are probably others who I don't remember right now. going to the final stage, and I had a dilemma. There was one driver ahead of me in 4th place, I saw, Claudio, in the Fiesta Rally 4, who I was quicker than him, but the gap was relatively big, around a minute if my memory is correct, and I wondered should I try to push a bit harder and take some risks to try and catch him, or try to compete for rally in my position. Eventually, I understood the gap was too big, and on driving alone I would not be able to catch him. So, I started the final stage, decided only to beat myself. Feeling good with the car and this time also with the pace notes, I took a bit more risks, and I was a lot quicker. Again though, on the final part of Terranova the brakes faded, and I had to drive a bit slower. There were also some sections where I made mistakes with the pace notes and braking a few hundred meters earlier than I really should have, which I think costed me another 10 seconds overall, and could have put me another place higher in the stage classification, but I reached the finishing line, extremely happy that I managed to complete my first gravel rally, and one of the most difficult rallies you could think of. Personally, I even think that Sardinia is one of the harshest rallies in the world. In fact, the stage which I drove were part of WRC stages in the past and the present. So, this was all for Rally Nuraghi. Now we went back to the ceremonial finish, thanks to the lady who bought me and Fabio a Coca-Cola. It was really enjoyable and I think we deserved it after what we managed to do in the 2 days of the rally. And now it's time to say thanks, both to the mechanics, Paolo and Christian, who fixed the car after problems and managed to maintain it rather well, and making it good to drive. To Fabio, the co-driver, who helped me a lot to learn with the conditions. His experience in the past with this rally made things much better and much easier for me. Also thanks to friends who helped me behind the scenes with some difficulties, to the Sim League F1IL and to the Karting League Elkin League, who both showed me a lot of support with what I do throughout the rally, and to Hagai Faran, who again helped me with the mental side throughout the rally. This is all for my latest rally. When will I do it again? Stay tuned and subscribe to the channel to know when it will happen. For now, thanks a lot for watching.
Non era semplice, non era scontato, quindi godetevi il